can you speed up the recovery of the ATP downregulation, or is it something that you literally just need to give it time because you can't speed up that physiological process?
When you understand the physiology of it, there's a few interesting things that could potentially be therapeutically beneficial. We don't have a ton of evidence on it, but there's a couple things. So one, magnesium and calcium kind of operate on a teeter-totter, and magnesium, it works to actually block the uptake of calcium into the cell. So if you have adequate levels of magnesium prior to getting hit, you could potentially, there's rationale to assume that you might actually end up with a less severe concussion, or at least the symptoms may be better, or the metabolic recovery may be faster, because if you get less calcium coming in, you have less disruption of the mitochondria. So they're offline for a shorter period of time. Now, again, this is purely theoretical based on that, but magnesium is one of those things that most athletes are deficient in. We sweat it out, and it's not really that high in a lot of our diets. And so it's one of those things that I recommend that any contact athlete just supplement with anyway. It's very high safety profile, and it's really beneficial for a lot of things, like, even cardiac function, sleep, muscle fatigue, that type of stuff. I think it's really good.
And it's cheap.
And yeah. And so that's one that could be, potentially, I don't want to say preventative, but kind of in a preventative or prophylactic thing you'd want to take just in preparation for. And the other one is creatine, because creatine essentially is, exogenous ATP. That's why it works to help with bodybuilding and your muscles, because as you're it gives you that extra boost of ATP so that you can pump out a couple extra reps when you're working out. And so there's been some studies on mice looking at creatine and accelerated recovery rates. So that's one thing that could either be done prophylactically as well in athletes, where if you have, higher levels of stores of, ATP ready to go, you may kind of bounce back quicker, who knows? Or it could be something that after injury, you might want to consider doing a bit of a loading, dose for a few days to try and kind of kickstart that up. Again, not really anything for human evidence. And I would want to avoid that. The other thing I think that you could probably benefit from is just limiting inflammation, because that's going to just, at least from a symptom standpoint, I think your metabolic health matters a lot. And I think a lot of people are metabolically unhealthy. Their mitochondria don't function as good as they should. And so trying to do things like eating healthy, avoiding, refined sugars, processed foods, and all the stuff that we, all the crap we eat now, trying to really eat clean is something that we always give to athletes after injuries, to try and see if we can boost that kind of metabolic thing. There's some newer evidence now on keto. A lot of it is things you can take or do. Exercise, now there's evidence on exercise. Again, I think that is just improving mitochondrial function, subsymptom threshold exercise. It improves cerebral blood flow. It balances the autonomic nervous system. There's a lot of reasons why exercise would be good too.
If you're doing all these things, you're supplementing with, say, magnesium, creatine, you're getting your exercise in, all that sort of stuff, does that mean that the symptoms potentially are going away a little bit quicker? And in the background, it's still taking that 3 to 4 weeks at least for everything to recover in terms of that ATP downregulation. Or if we do supplement, and do all these things and, exercise, is that allowing us to recover the ATP a little bit quicker, or is it just too hard to make that call?
Yeah, it's too hard. It's too hard to make that call. I think this is all just theoretical. So I think what you'd have to do is design a really good study to actually look at it to see if it does actually speed, recovery of ATP. It's a hard thing to study though. I mean, because everyone's concussion, theoretically you could have differing severities of concussion injury depending on how many, cells are involved. You may have, slightly different levels of ATP deficits. You may have, I think it's hard to control. I think the best thing to do would probably be, you'd probably start studying it in animals, and you can control the amount of force on the impact. You can kind of try to make sure that everyone's starting from an equal playing field, and then gradually, and they've done this before with things like keto, and they're showing that, but I don't know if they're looking at necessarily ATP or if they're looking at, other factors. They'll often call the animals after and look at, various things like tau deposition and whatever else, you may see, various compounds that are, upregulated or downregulated after injury. So it's just, we don't know. It's purely theoretical. I think that there's, it's one of those things right now. It's like, we look at it like, well, it can't hurt and it may help. Okay. Safety profiles there, we would do it. I would still, as a clinician, I'd be still holding them out. Like, I'm not doing this to try and get them back to play faster. I'm just doing this to help them feel better and, hopefully have a better chance of being outside of that window, whether they are or not, that's not been proven.